What's going on, guys? It's your favorite mortgage lender, Abdel Kouami, Got Mortgages. I've got my good buddy, Eric, with Model Match. What's up, dude?
What's up, man? I was jiving to the intro tunes.
You like that, right? It's
I like it.
it's always fun. I created on Canva
You
as
composed that.
yeah. So I did
Yeah,
it
I'm
myself,
just stealing stuff from Spotify that I'll probably get fined for at some point.
probably. Man, it's always fun trying to figure out tech, right? And talk about, you and I are pretty techie and trying to figure out this goddamn sound thing.
we just
Yeah,
we just wasted 13 minutes trying to figure out why Abdel couldn't hear me. I was convinced it was on my end until we
so was
figured out
I.
that it was somebody else.
Yeah, that's funny, man. Well, it's always good to see you. You and I have gotten super close, I would say, over the last couple of I would say year or two.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so funny, and I always say this every time we jump on. When I first met you, I want to say it was 4 years ago. Was Nashville the first leadership conference that you did with PRMG?
San Diego was the first. I think that was just before that, and
Okay.
then Nashville was the
Got it.
second, which is where you and I hung out. Yep.
Got it. Yeah. So it's so funny, and I'm obviously a big fan of technology and implementing technology and automation and all that, and I never freaking knew what you did. Right. And it was funny because, many people during public speaking are usually just talking about how great their product is. Right. And not really, in my opinion, sometimes educating what their product actually does. And I think you do such a good job at that. Right. And then eventually, right, going for the call to action of what your stuff goes through. But you want to definitely introduce yourself, to some of the audience and kind of let us know what it's all about.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to come back to what you said also, because I was having a conversation about this today. So this what you just talked about, which is presenting useful best practices on a topic, and then also selling a product or something that can help that topic. So let's come back to it. So yeah, I'm one of the co-founders of Model Match. My business partner and I, Drew Waterhouse, started a recruiting firm during the crisis of 2008. Which was a pretty crazy time to invest in just about anything that was housing. Although if you believe in the buy low moments, that was there was certainly a buy low moment. That's for sure. Yeah. And those of us that remember that period of time, there was a lot of starving going on, but there was also a lot of innovating because you had to get creative to figure out how are you going to create value for your customers, but also how do you develop new relationships in this market where everything's kind of a start over. But what we learned from that and building out that platform was that, the individuals that were consistently successful in business development were ones that followed a very specific process. And it wasn't just about nuance. It wasn't just about art. It wasn't just about a product or a widget. It was consistency and predictability in a process that ultimately leads to building trust. And we thought to ourselves, well, why isn't there an LOS of sorts for business development? If I asked you, where does the Smith file stand? You type a couple of keys and you know exactly where it stands. You know what you need and you know who's up next. But if you ask the same question to an originator about an agent that they're building a relationship with, there's no good answer. It's all, oh, we're going to catch up in a couple of weeks, or I'm going to swing by the office and talk about sponsoring a golf tournament or whatever. Sure. So we built Model Match as that actionable environment to track your business development efforts. And again, that could be a loan officer developing a relationship with an agent, or it could be a branch manager recruiting an LO, or a company recruiting a branch, or even acquisition for that matter. You and I are going to get into this because, man, you see business development crazy globally. And I mean, the plumber represents business development opportunities for you. And I love that. But then eventually our users came to us in about 2020 and said, we love this. It's holding me accountable, but I don't know who to call.
Yep.
And so that's where the data part of this really then came into play, right? There were other companies that had done it a little bit, very much for vetting, I think, mostly like, how do I vet someone? For us, we saw it a little bit differently, and that is, how do you use the intelligence to impact your conversation? So we went out and we invested in all of the NMLS data as well as the real estate data, and we've evolved since then. So that's a little bit about model match. I want to go back though to something that you kind of teed this up with, and
Yeah.
because I appreciate what you said, and I take it as a compliment. But man, it's a slippery slope as a speaker to know where's that line between selling and consulting, I guess, or being a thought leader as it relates to a best practice. Because if you've built something that was designed to help in that process, why wouldn't you share it?
Yeah.
But I remember one of my worst speaking experiences. I chose to not use any screenshots from our technology, to not talk about it, completely leave it out. And I got off stage and texted my head of product and I said, don't ever let me do that again. And it wasn't because I'll be careful when it comes to Abdel, you tell me, dude, you oversold, you came across a little slick, I didn't like it. And then I would fix it and we'd move on. But if you've built something that creates value and there's proof of concept and use cases, why wouldn't you use it to explain how you manage these best practices with a tool that can create an efficiency? So anyway, I appreciate the fact that you feel like I've danced the line well, because it's
Yeah.
a tough thing sometimes.
And I can attribute it really to like how I operate at the same time, right? Like I do a lot of training, as you know, with various different
Oh
professionals,
yeah.
not just real estate professionals. And the first thing I always have, right? Today we had 3 partnership meetings. Usually, whenever I have every Thursday is my partnership meetings when the team is booking me up, and I always start with the beginning. I'm like, listen, I'm not going to talk to you about mortgage products. We've got it all. I've been with PRMG for 7 years, and I've been in the industry for 7 years, and it's the only company I've been with. So that in and of itself should tell you what I feel about our products.
Mm-hmm.
Can we move on? And I'm like, listen, we've got your FHA, VA, USDA conventional. We just launched commercial. We've got a lot of different non-QM stuff, bank statements, DSCR, HELOCs. Nobody gives a shit, right? Let's talk about how we could provide value and diving into tech and stuff like that.
Yep.
Now, you mentioned recruiting. Obviously, you started in the initial world of recruiting.
Mm-hmm.
Model Match obviously has transformed that traditional recruiting method, right? What do you think is some of the tangible benefits that really any industry professional can take advantage of, within Model Match?
Well, I think the first thing is people look at data and intelligence and you think, okay, I'm going to use data to identify who I should be communicating with. 100%. You absolutely should be doing that. But there's a step that happens before that the pros really know are it's super important before you go to that. And that is, do you even understand who you are?
Mm-hmm.
Do you understand your own value proposition? Not only your company's value proposition, but your value proposition as an originator, an account executive, a manager, a leader. And you should break that down by very specific core competencies. And over the years, I've kind of broken that down as into things like business. And business is the easy stuff. It's like what you were just saying: your product mix, how much volume do you do, purchase to refi, the obvious. But then leadership. Who's going to hold my hand? Who's going to put me in a position to make sure I'm being taken care of? Culture. Now, culture can mean a lot of things, and it can even go into things like compensation and pricing. And the only reason I say that is because the economics there's an emotion to economics and there's an emotion to culture. And so sometimes those things kind of work together. Geography, technology, operations. Those are the 6 core competencies that you should audit yourself with first. You should also consider what's your criteria. Abdel may say, I don't really want to work. And by the way, there might be good reason. I don't want to work with the top 3 or 4 agents in town. They've been here forever. They've got their top relationships. I'm never really gonna, maybe my time is better spent in that level below it, but the level above the bottom third, that's my sweet spot. And maybe then what product is my sweet spot? What geography is my sweet spot? What connections do they have with lenders? Maybe that's a sweet spot. If Abdel is with an IMB and I see agents that are 99% banks and credit unions, there might be a reason why we're not a good fit for each other. So understand yourself, understand your own criteria, and then start that process of investigation. But I think one thing that sets Model Match apart, at least philosophically, is we're always then thinking, what are you going to do with that data? How can the environment make your actionable steps a little bit easier? Because what should we be doing with the data? You said the word recruiting, and here's why. And you know, I hate that word.
Yeah, I know.
And the reason I do is that if I ask you, I was on the phone with a company the other day, or just yesterday, and they said our goal is to grow by 600 million before the end of the year. I think they can do that. I said, how are you going to do it? And they said, well, we think if we hire this many individual contributors that do this much volume, this many branches that do this much volume, that we can hit that goal. Great. That math totally makes sense. But you've left something out.
How are you going to get them? Or
Well,
where are
not
you going to find them too? Yeah.
yes, but still something else, something that's huge. And when I say it, you're going to be like, oh, of course. What about the volume that you can help add to your current staff?
Now. Yeah.
You didn't say 600 million in new headcount. You said 600 million.
Total.
So whether we get it from new headcount or helping our originators do more volume, it should all be part of the same business development process. That's how we think at Model Match.
I love that. Yeah, and you know, there's so many different tech-driven solutions now, right? And AI is obviously now it's here, it's there. If you haven't assimilated to it, you know, you're late. Hurry up and get on the train
Right.
before it's gone. And I'm a firm believer, man. Since we've dove into your platform, right? It's been awesome. And I'm always like, yo, dude, I got this and I got that. And I literally cut out about 2 other different tech stacks that we had because you guys did it. Right. And I love that because now we're able to kind of jump in there, really build a strong brand behind it and believe in it and provide that value proposition to partners. And it works. I mean, we've gotten so creative, like you and I know, in putting it and using that data. And I think that's the hardest part, right? Is you have access to the tech stack, then what? What are you doing from action step one to the end?
Right.
And when you get to that point at the end, do you have various checkpoints to track each one of those measures and figure out how to streamline and automate it even further with checklists? And, you know, I use Scribe a lot. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like, hey, boom. All right, well, I'm going to figure this how to do it myself. Then I'm going to record my screen and I'm going to take step by step. And now my entire team knows how to do it. So there's no second questioning later on if I assign a specific task how to do something. Right.
Well, and hold that for a second. You know, one of the things I remember when you sent me a screenshot of Scribe, um, because you asked me early on, hey, how do I do X? And I think I sent you a video or
Yeah.
something.
Yep.
And then you turned it into a tutorial for the rest of your team, which was literally do this, do this, do this, do this. The reality is most people aren't you. I mean, I think that's what should be happening because what you found is that you did that one time and then you were able to scale that tutorial to gain adoption. I'm curious, are, you know, when what has been your experience with adoption? Because, and maybe my brain's going in an ADD direction here, but
Yep.
you know, one of the things that we hear a lot when it comes to just tech in general is companies get real excited about a platform and then they say, yeah, but my loan officers won't adopt it. Talk to me a little bit about that because you've been really good at not only your own adoption, but supporting adoption from others on your team, whether it's Model Match or something else.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you got to the first thing I always say, and I'll sound like a broken record, but you got to find out first what's the reason you're using it for, right? And you got to be able to write down your tasks first, right? Where there was the famous Abraham Lincoln quote, I think what's his name mentioned it, Joe, shout out to Joe, his social coach.
Mm-hmm.
He had mentioned it where it was like, you know, you go out to cut wood, and then for the first hour and a half, you sharpen your axe, and then
Right.
you go out there
Yeah.
and cut it. And I'm totally butchering the quote. But it's so true. And I think that's where many professionals end up failing. And I do the same thing with both my loan officers, but really also a heavy focus over the last 2.5, 3 years, which has really allowed our business to blow up, is a focus not just on originators, but also on referral partners.
Mm-hmm.
And understanding not even just real estate agents, but also various other professionals as to like, hey, have anybody ever talked to you about business planning, or do you track this? Do you track that? Or do you scale this? Do you scale that? No. Well, wait, would you be open to a conversation? And then it turned out from one conversation to conversation. Now I have 18, 19 business owners that come to my office every other Thursday, and we're literally sharing actionable tips and strategies and tactics as to like, hey, well, you should adopt this because I'm noticing that it's working, and you shouldn't veer away from technology, right? I'm usually always the youngest person in the room.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 35.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm 50 half the time when I wake up. But I love it because because it really lets you integrate technology, but you really can't adopt tech, to your point, until you actually know what you're using it for, right? So and then you should be able to set the checkpoints in place as like, okay, well, I need it, say, to let's start from the top. I need it to be able to find a list of real estate agents.
Hmm.
Okay, so that's your first point. After you find that list of real estate agents and you figure out how to work through the intricacies of getting the list, then what? Then what's the next step? Is there a time block for you to call those specific real estate agents? Is there a specific metrics that you can have to find out, like you had mentioned, who's a stud, who's a dud, who's a whale? What systems are you actually putting in place to be able to find out, okay, I'm only going to reach out to agents who've closed a minimum of 5 and a maximum of 20, because anyone who did more already has established relationships, or they're going to want what my new word has been like a fraternity relationship where I just got
Hmm.
to pay you to join, your cult, rather than a real partnership as to like, hey, I'm going to give you all these tools, all these resources. We actually adopt them and integrate them into your business. And PRMG does a great job at that, man, because they're awesome at bringing in as much stuff in front of us, right? With tech stacks and new this and new that. But I truly think it comes down to the branch manager or the originator or the regional to implement those into each individual person's business model.
Yeah, well, and you've also talked to me about things that you've done, use cases, and of course, I'm always asking you about Model Match because it's what we built, and I'm always really curious how someone's using it. And one example you just gave was it's adoption. Well, let's define adoption. So if the loan officer is only going into a data environment and identifying agents that meet criteria, well, that's pretty good. You're probably saving some time, and there's a use case for that. There's value to that. But then you take it a step further. Are you filtering down by product? Are you filtering down by lender? Are you filtering down by originator
Mhm.
relationship? Can you see the wallet share that agent may have with a particular loan officer, so that when you make a phone call, you can do what? You go in with intelligence,
Data,
you
right?
understand how to create value. You might see an agent who's doing a little bit of first time home buyer, but they're generally doing business in a geography that has a lot of first time home buyer. And that's an aha moment. Hey, look, I'm really good at this. I can maybe help you drive more business. An agent's going to be open to hearing that. But talk to me a little bit about some of the ways that, because you get really creative with some of the intelligence. It's
Oh yeah.
just, use cases that you and your team have experienced and gained value from.
Yeah, I mean, listen, home buying seminars has been another recent big push. I did 52 in 2023, one every single Saturday the entire year. And boy, were they a lot. Was it tough? But dude, I've got content galore, and it's custom PDFs and visuals that I have literally taken the time to. Hey, a house is about to underappraise. What's your option? Boom, 5 steps. Here you go. Option one: dispute, revisit financing, ask the seller to negotiate. Try to get a second opinion on an appraisal if we can, or just kill the contract. These are your
Mhm.
5 options. So in advance, if I'm telling you, hey, dude, we got to go 30K over, and this is a bit over ask because Barry Habib and MBS Highway has showed us that break even point, and it's in front of you visually. And if something happens, here's the 5 options that we're going to tackle if something comes up. Does that make sense? So when a client does that, what I always try to do is eliminate the number of no's that I'm going to get, right? And really anticipate the question before it gets asked, right? Because the first question is going to be, I got to go 40K more. Oh my God, the whole world is going to end. My parents who bought a house 20 years ago are telling me not to do that.
Right.
But then I hit them with a MBS Highway appreciation sheet that shows that the house is going to be worth $300,000 in less than 10 years based on historical appreciation. 340, you tell me, right? And then Tim Berheem with Loan Atlas has been awesome at putting a lot of different worksheets that I've been adopting. We've been doing his training sessions,
Mhm.
and showing like appraisal gap strategy templates, right? Where if a house under appraises, what are the various different tools you can do without having to really change, your actual money to closing. Your loan to value is going to change for you. But again, it's visual. So it's in front
Mhm.
of the consumer. Now, if I'm talking respectfully to say a really a blue collar client who I'm still going to go out of my way to educate them, But I might necessarily, if I don't see that same love, and by the way, these conversations must be on Zoom, just like this setting. It cannot be on a phone call
Right. They got to see you.
because I need you to exactly look at my
Yep.
screen, see the visual, see what your monthly payment is, implement Dave Savage's stuff, which is what we've been doing heavily this year with Mortgage Coach and Total Cost Analysis, and saying, hey, this is your payment, this is your payment. You tell me what works best. To the point where the agents are now saying, they're like, we're, because of course, you know me, I'm the gorilla. So I call it the gorilla analysis. So then like, where's the GA? Where's the gorilla analysis? And I'm like, I know, I'm working on it. We're putting it together. But you have fun, right? And I think that's the scary part too with tech, is that sometimes people usually fear from it as opposed to really just adopt it, integrate it, and then really implement it within their day to day.
This is something that the TPO space has done for a long time, where you've got an account executive who, covers 3 states, let's say, and what are they doing? They're building relationships with brokers. They're getting new brokers signed up and approved. And then they're trying to drive more business with those brokers.
Yeah.
But for a while now, whether it's proprietary tools or otherwise, they're doing the research to be able to see, okay, these 10 brokers that I want to establish a relationship with are sending X business to this company, Y business to this company, Z business to this company. Well, I can do an analysis to understand, well, how do I stack up against these
Mm-hmm.
companies? And based upon that broker's business, when I go in and talk to them, just bringing them a box of popcorn probably isn't going to cut it. What can I talk to them about that will help them? Exactly what you were just doing with the consumer. It's the same game with the agent. It's the same game with the broker to the account executive. It's also the same game with the agent that you already get business from, but you're losing business that you don't even know you're losing out the back door. And I know you've used some of the data inside of Model Match to identify those opportunities, either know how to communicate with an agent, or even, I think you were telling me, helping someone that's not even a loan officer or an agent, but know what agent. So maybe it's another business that's communicating with agents. Hey, let me help you identify proper agents based upon your criteria. And then what comes around goes around.
100%. And that was a new push. That was something I was so excited to share with you, where I'm like, all right, I figured it out. I've got all my loan officers who've got access to all the stud realtors. And listen, the data gets pulled from MLS, I'm sure, in various different sources. It's not 120% accurate. It's physically impossible,
Mm-hmm.
but it's going to give us at least a very, very heavy starting point and then some, right?
Really good guide.
Yeah. And I started thinking, well, snap, realtor, lender, I don't do coffee, I don't do lunch, I don't do any of that crap. If anything, it's your significant other is going to come, who's going to be my significant other, and we're going to bullshit, and we're not going to talk shop. We're just going to talk, just family and kids and stuff like that, because that's my relationship, right? The business is going to take care of itself. And if it's not, then I'm not making money. And obviously, you're not making money either. But we started identifying, hey, well, what if I can also supply personal referral partners of mine also with the same access to tech, and they don't have to do it. We will do it for them and identify various different specific geographical locations like we were
Mm-hmm.
talking about.
Yep.
Because everybody goes, oh, well, I do loans throughout the nation. Okay. So PureMG gives us that opportunity to do so, or I lend throughout all of New Jersey. Well, what's your hyper focused niche? And how can we really help you identify that, right? Whether it's speaking with minority clients, so Hispanic community, or whether it's identifying those who do a lot more listings, those who do a lot more buyers. Maybe if you're a home inspector, we'll get you some pre-inspections prior to listing appointments, so you can get
Mm-hmm.
that in there. Just so many different opportunities for you to be successful. Or if you're an insurance agent, obviously you want to go after the realtor, or if you're an attorney and you want to be able to advocate and provide that. So if I'm that gateway source to provide you that data and then really say, hey, dude, here it is on a silver platter. And this is what we've done our research for. And I'm going to help you in helping identify based on that specific data point, where my team will even cultivate those relationships for you. And it's a law of reciprocity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Become successful. And by the time people really truly start to get to work with us too, right? And know that we have access to, growth strategies and direct relationships with people like yourselves, who are the owners, who are like, yo, dude, I got this great idea. And then it's like, all right, well, we're going to go behind the scenes and we're going to try to actually put something together, which to me is huge, right? Because we had a different platform before. I won't say the name, but there's everything to an extent does similar stuff, right? And then it's really just the fine tweaking and stuff that really helps it work. But yeah, we've gained, and we've been leveraging that advantage, and maximizing our ROI from the platforms.
Well, anybody that just heard that, or anybody that hears it when you talk about it, should think about something. You were talking about AI earlier, and it's the whole idea of robots are coming for your job, right? Well, they are. I mean, at some level, they're coming for all of our jobs. So if you were the robot, what would you do? Well, the robot would identify all of this intelligence. It would take a breath before it started making phone calls. It would identify all of this intelligence, and it would go after the home inspectors, the insurance agents, the title reps, the mortgage insurance reps, right? And it would start creating value for all of them to create this, and I hate this word, but I'm going to use it, ecosystem that then has what you said, reciprocity. So what you just did was you did the job of the robot. Here's the other thing I'll tell you. We're getting a lot of signups from Auto Match from mortgage insurance, title insurance, real estate. So if Abdel's not giving it to them, they're going to just go get it themselves. Of course, I hope they do go get it themselves, because that means I get more users. But the truth is, the more you talk to them about it and you present it to them, you're the one that says, hey, this creates value. Well, they still might sign up for Model Match, but they're still going to work with you.
100%. Yeah. It's crucial. I think it truly just comes down to providing the education, real marketing support, right, that you could put in place, and firmly believing behind that growth strategy and actually implementing, right? Plan, implement, execute. People have, I'm not going to say I suck at planning, but I'm not the one that's like, waking up in the middle of the day and like, I got an aha moment, right? No, it's usually like I'm very analytical and I got to think about it and all that stuff. But I'm really good at implementing and executing, right? Where it's like, if I know that there's something that I want to do, I'm going to go do it now. And I'm not going to go to sleep until I could figure out, now that I have that specific system in place, what is going to be the things that are going to happen that are going to slip through the cracks,
right?
And I can make sure that I could actually watch that stuff, right?
Well, you have to identify the cracks first, though.
Exactly.
Right. And so that's what the intelligence can do. We when we first rolled out the tool that showed the relationship between agent and an originator, and then of course wallet share, and that was a while ago. I got a phone call. Somebody said, "Hey, look, I'm really happy with something, and I'm really upset about something." And I thought, "Oh, great. Well, what do you want to tell me first?"
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you what I'm happy with. What I'm happy with is that I just identified an agent that I thought was sending me almost all of their business, and it turns out they're not. There's a significant amount that's not. And it was a product that I wasn't getting. So I made a phone call, explained to them that I can support them on this product. And the only reason I wasn't getting it is because they didn't know that. They didn't know. They didn't know they didn't know that was a sweet spot for us. So now I'm getting all this business. I said, okay, well then what are you mad at me about? And he said, I ran the math on all the business I've lost in the last 24 months. And so now I'm mad about that.
Well, earlier.
That's right. And it goes back. Yeah. Why didn't you fix this problem earlier? But it goes back to your comment around the cracks. You have to know what the cracks are first. One of the things that good salespeople are good at is that they can talk and they'll do the hard work and they'll make the difficult calls. They'll do all the things a lot of people don't want to do. And that's why they should get paid really well for what they do. But what they're also many times not good at is they're not good at scale and they're not good at efficiency. If you can put that work ethic together with the scale and the efficiency of the tools that can help double you and triple you, that's where the magic lives. And so when people ask what's the difference, because there's a lot of places you can purchase NMLS and real estate data from, but there's not a lot of places where you can purchase it at the depth that we provide it, and also in the environment that's always thinking about how do you turn this into a loan? How do you turn this into revenue? Which, by the way, at that point, you're not paying something that only hits the expense line item, right? In your true P&L or in your fictitious P&L. There's a revenue component to that. And on some of these tools, it's really easy math to run. You close one extra loan a year and you probably just paid for the whole thing. And I'm not saying anybody should be high-fiving over one extra loan a year. My point is, though, the math, if you'll just use it a little bit, is really easy to run.
Yeah, and like Ryan Goldsmith, who's our regional, he's always busting my chops because he knows I'm huge into tech. So he goes, "Oh, tech stack," and I'm like, "Yeah, but dude, like I use every single thing, and if I didn't, I'm gonna cut it, right?"
Right.
And I know that it's enhancing my borrower experience. It's enhancing my consumer experience. My team probably called you or texted you right before the meeting. You got your constant
Oh, dude, I got tons of reminders. I wasn't going to miss this one.
Calendly invites,
Yep.
Zapier reminders. It's there. Now, imagine if we're now working with a referral partner who also now plugs in a consumer and they get that too. Or
Right.
we're doing Zoom calls and they're getting Firefly recordings after the fact, showing that we've explained everything. I'm also a big CYA cover my ass. So when a client says, "Hey, I didn't realize I was paying an extra point or so," and then it's like, well, bomb video. I explained the final closing disclosure, screenshot of this, and that comes also from my legal background, like back in the day.
Right. Oh, yeah.
So I think it's really adopting all the different trends that are happening. Right, rates are going to go down. Right, we've actually the last 2-3 days have been awesome. I'm locking people, and then I'm like, damn, how am I going to hit this? And I run pricing. I'm like, oh shit, it's actually better than I thought it was. Which is great, but I think it really just comes down to wrapping it up of the best opportunities for us are the ones that we take advantage of, right? And the ones that we can actually sit back and implement. And I certainly appreciate you and your time and energy and everything that you've put in place. And it's funny, it took us, what was it, 4 years? Because right before Nashville was what year?
2021.
Fuck yeah, so 4 years.
Yeah.
Well, technically 3.5, but let's say 4 years. 4 years, and I don't think we really started working with each other's heavily until 5 months ago. Or it might have
Oh,
been
yeah. Look, that's a great reminder, right? Like you and your company have been one of a few that believed in us enough to be really hard on us.
Yeah.
Really hard on us. Like I can remember calls that felt very difficult, but I never saw it as adversarial. What I saw it as, we believe that you guys can solve this problem, and so we're going to keep pushing and testing. And eventually, it went from us having 30, 40, 50 users and a lot of great relationships, and the company investing and having me come out and speak at all the events every year, to then, you know what, the time is right now. The value is represented. Let's make the conversion. And then we did it. And so you were just thanking me, but I thank you and I thank people like you, because the truth is, I listen to everyone, but I don't take advice from everyone. And when someone can tell, look, man, borrower insights, we just rolled out not that long ago. Well, you were one of the ones that said, man, if you could just take the transaction details that you already have on all the properties that are associated to every agent and every loan officer in Model Match, but if you could then have this extra little thing that then gave us borrower contact information, equity score, loan balance, price ranges, I could remove another thing that I'm using. Well,
you guys
3-4 months later, I call you up and I'm like, hey man, guess what? You have access to that now. So thank you, because companies like ours become better because of really great users and really great partners.
Yeah, well, listen, it's always a pleasure. I'm sure it's going to continuously get innovated, which I think is awesome. We're constantly pivoting, and I love that you guys are doing the same, where it's not the same,
No summer breaks, man. Doesn't happen.
No, sir. That's for sure. Well, before I wrap up, you guys still running your campaign with the 828, right?
Oh, dude, thanks for asking. I got the Hickory FC scarf hanging up right here.
I wanted to wear my shirt, but I wore both of them when I sent you the pictures.
Yeah.
And it's in the laundry. I shot this, so I'm like, damn it.
It's a good workout shirt too. It's a good training shirt. It's nice and thin. Yeah. So Hickory FC is a little side thing that I do. Me and a couple buddies started a semi-pro soccer team last year. It's a summer league, but it is semi-pro, and it's really cool. A lot of fun. We should do an event. We should do a big event there one day. It'd be a blast. But we, Western North Carolina got hit with Hurricane Helene not that long ago, and I'm right on the border of where things weren't really bad where I am, but down the road and then to the west, it got really, really bad. And so we decided to create some t-shirts, 828 strong, and donate 100% of the proceeds to some local organizations. We wrote close to a $10,000 check just a few months ago to Samaritan's Purse, and then we're going to keep doing that. And you've been awesome, man. Thank you for the Northeastern support on the 828 strong.
Absolutely, man. Well, it's always a pleasure. You're the man. I know we'll definitely do this more and more as we continue going. And we'll wrap it up, my friend.
Yeah, all the best, dude. You're the best.
Appreciate it.